How are you?
I'm well. I'm ready for
Good.
another day.
Excellent. I am not. I've been awake for a couple of hours now, and I didn't sleep at all last night.
That is a
Some nights are
drag.
just like that. Some nights are
Yeah,
just like that.
yeah.
I am here at the Microsoft MVP and Regional Director Summit in Seattle.
And that
That's cool.
explains why your background looks so different.
And yeah, explains why I'm using my laptop camera today
Yeah,
instead. I was like, oh, I forgot. Yeah. Well, that's all
yeah.
right. I'll just be a little grainy today.
That's
It is what
okay.
it is.
Good.
It is what it is. It's been a great summit though, right here. Microsoft building number 22 is right across the street. And I've just been seeing a lot of friends and it's been a fun week so far.
Nice,
It's been
nice,
cool. It's a
nice.
nice
Yeah.
conference. I wanted to talk a little bit about trust today and the neuroscience of trust,
I think that
which,
is
you know,
an
I
important
like brains.
subject. Yeah, you like brains. I like brains too. I'm glad I
I like
broke that
brains.
one.
Well, it's debatable at this point. I've been awake since 2 a.m. I don't know. I found this cool study from McKinsey, and it was talking about how this latest report was talking about how organizations led by empathetic leaders during crises, they saw a 2.1 times increase in employee trust and engagement. And how a lot of employee trust and engagement, which we talk about, of course, in our practicum and our workshop, in our live streams a lot. And I know you've been doing a lot of talks about trust lately too.
Yeah.
But it's really related to how we connect to people as well. So they did this study as well um, with even in Psychology Today. They were talking about how even if they did this study of a series of tasks with a computer, and even though the computer and the people were 50% trustworthy, it didn't matter. People still trusted their friends, the people they knew in their social network more, even though the results were the same, the trust was the same. We still we depend on those connections to trust people, and so
Yeah.
sometimes that makes us vulnerable to people who know they have an intent to be, untrustworthy. They can manipulate people in that way.
Hmm.
So it's interesting in the neuroscience behind that.
I found that interesting too because I don't know the neuroscience like you do, but I certainly found it fascinating. And one of the things I found fascinating was different groups, different
Mm,
societies have different levels of trust from the get go. Like
uh,
Americans are more trustworthy. Some other communities, it mentioned Germany,
uh-huh.
was initially less trustworthy. And I need to work with a German friend today, so I'll keep that in mind. Like I'll do something to establish trust.
Right,
um,
right.
but uh, that and the things that are in people's lives that make it easier or harder for them to be trustworthy. For example,
Mm,
or trusting. I don't mean trustworthy. I mean trusting.
mm-hmm,
For
mm-hmm.
example, people who have undergone trauma or
Yes.
betrayal or have been victimized
Mm,
are less trusting
mm-hmm.
because they've been burned. It's like don't touch the
Sure.
stove. When you touch the stove and you get burned, and you don't trust the stove anymore, you're not going to
That's
go near
right.
it.
That's
Um,
right. Well, if the signal is strong enough or repetitive enough, we'll learn it. It'll imprint into our neural pathways. So it's there. That memory is there. We've learned.
hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We were talking about I was telling people last night we were at down in the hotel bar having some drinks, and somebody was saying, yeah, there's trustworthiness with your employer too. We're talking about how much do you trust your employer with your personal information, with your personal data. And two examples of developers in our community, within our community, who had given over their employer had control of their phone, had control of their schedule, and two people in our community that we noted had lost their jobs while en route, right? They were on a consulting job. They were, I don't know if they were developer advocates and they were at a conference and speaking, but regardless, they had lost their job, and on their way home from the conference, from the job, from the work, the company had canceled their travel plans halfway through and had wiped their phones, Leslie, their personal phone, because they had given their personal phone to,
Wow.
right? And so, how much trust then do you give to your employer?
After that, it would be like zero.
Well, we were talking, we're like, oh yeah, both of them now are their own bosses and have been their own bosses for a long, long time, ever since that, right? You get burned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
certainly understandable.
So,
And I'm also interested in the things suppose you're a leader in an organization and you have the trust of your teams, and then you make a decision without explaining it that the teams think is hard
all
to
right.
figure out. Why would they want to do that?
Yeah.
Why would we be acquiring this other company, or
Mm,
why would we be doing this or that? And then there comes speculation and lack of trust and wasted time, which of course means that performance just drops to the
no, because everybody's
bottom.
having these side conversations. Hey,
Right.
did you hear about this? Hey,
Yeah.
what about that? Did this
Right.
happen?
Why?
Hey, do you know? Well, this is what I heard.
And it's like you can do something that you don't know is going to have a huge impact, like make a decision without explaining it,
Yes.
um, and then trust can go out the window. So one thing to do to help restore trust is to do your best at explaining
Mm,
decisions that impact other people. Why are we
mm,
doing this? Well, we're doing this to expand our presence in Asia,
right.
or we're doing this to increase our skills in this particular domain.
Yes.
And whatever explanation there is that can help people understand why you're doing something that comes
Well,
as a
and it
surprise.
affects them, and it
Yeah,
affects them too, right?
yeah.
So here you're making decisions that affect a team and they feel powerless and they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why. And
Mm-hmm.
left to their own devices, like you said, speculation's going to happen. If
Yeah,
I'm left to my own devices, I'm going to come up. Our brains, a lot of people, most people don't like uncertainty, right?
right,
And
right.
so they'll want to fill in the blanks. I mean, my kids do this. Of course, they don't have fully formed brains yet, but they don't like uncertainty. They fill in the blanks and they go, "Oh, okay, so we must be this, that, and that." I'm like, where did you even get that from? Where what kind
Right.
of an imagination do you have? Like, why? Uh, no, we're just going to the store. Like, what are you talking about? And they'll make things up and they'll fill in the blanks. So it's important to make sure that people can make their own informed judgments on what's happening, even if it's still out of their control. It's important still to give people information because that uncertainty,
Right.
uh, it will spread.
Yeah. So that's the why question. Why are we doing this? Why
Hmm.
are you making this decision?
Hmm.
And providing as much answer to the why question as you can is just, unless it involves corporate secrets, it can
Sure.
be something so simple that will help people uh, maintain a trust in their leaders rather than think, oh my gosh, he's gone crazy. We're doing
Yeah.
this. Why? Why would
Yeah.
we be doing this? This is nuts. And, you know, I need to find a new job right now.
Right.
Or I
Right.
need to be an entrepreneur and not work for anybody else because I can't trust them.
My
They
own
do crazy stuff.
yes, start your own consultancy. Exactly. I
Yeah.
remember I was talking to somebody a few years ago, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know about having a boss. I don't know about that guy. Like, he can he can fire me. Like, I don't know. I think I kind of want to be my own boss. That way, am firing myself if anything."
Right. Well,
There
that's
was a
for the people who've been burned. You've been
right.
burned. You're going to worry about those things. And
Yeah.
man, and especially if you've been burned for what seems to be no
Mm,
reason given. No, it's just so disturbing to
mm,
not have a reason or not have a reason that seems accurate. If the reason is, I'm sorry, we have to let you go because our revenues dropped by 50% last year and we're going to have
mm-hmm,
to cut this whole division, that's a
mm,
reason that a person can understand.
right.
But when the reason is, we're just letting you go. Uh,
I'm yeah, I mean, I've heard it where, and I've seen and heard a lot of recordings, of three of them just this last, within the last 6 months, where people are like, but I don't understand. I had my performance reviews. I did that. And they're saying, well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get you the answers that you want today. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any resolution that you'd like to hear. Unfortunately, anything that I say isn't going to make you feel better, and I just recommend that we move forward with the process. Like it's there's just nothing, and there's no closure to any of
right.
those. Um, it's very frustrating, and when it's out of your control and you don't have that agency, it just shows such a clear, obvious lack of empathy,
Yeah.
right? When if we overhired during COVID and now we need to lay people, like, let me know. That makes sense, but don't say
Hmm.
it's my performance. When I was just talking to my supervisor yesterday and they said we're doing great.
Yeah.
There was a really good article from Isabella Lundberg. I met her actually. We went to a conference in Australia a while ago. Maybe it was about 9 years ago or so in on the Gold Coast. And I still follow her on LinkedIn, and she does a lot of executive leadership and change management stuff. And she wrote a really good article. But it was kind of the thing that sparked, as well as that study that I came across, this conversation. When I texted you, I was like, "Hey, let's talk about neuroscience of trust." But this is a great quote from her article on LinkedIn. She says, "Crisis is a crucible where true leaders are forged, not because they have all the answers, but because they are willing to face the fire and guide others through it." And I really think that that completely embodies empathy, you know, and empathetic leadership and understanding uh, where everybody's coming from, to the point that you're going to keep them informed. You're going to give them information that, like you said, obviously you can't give them company secrets or things, but you can give them basic information
Right.
as to what's going on and why the decisions are being made.
Yeah. And the notion that crises are the crucible in which leaders are formed. Well, we're dealing with a lot of crises right now,
Mm,
crises born of uncertainty,
mm,
crises formed because people aren't certain about what the cost of goods is going to be, if there are
mm-hmm,
tariffs or no tariffs,
mm-hmm.
crises coming from uh, uncertain conditions globally. That
Yes.
can and locally,
Yeah.
that can create a lot of hard decisions for people and a lot of
Mm-hmm,
situations where leaders find themselves in a crisis. And how they get through it and how they get their team through it will
Hmm.
really be uh, a function of their intelligence and empathy and ability to see a way forward when the way forward is not at all clear. And that's the change. That's where you drop down and become really low performance when
Uh-huh.
you can't see what's going on and where is my career headed, where
Yes.
is, or if it's personal, where is our relationship headed? You know, you've
Uh-huh.
been unfaithful. I can't, you
Yeah.
know, I can't, I can't function anymore. I don't know what to believe. And
Hmm.
it's true in relationships, it's true in professional situations. You have to be able to have some way to see your way through that.
Hmm.
And I'm writing a novel. Well, I'm writing a parable about leadership, and my hero is a surfer.
Uh,
And so I use the idea that he drops down in, into the pipe of a
uh-huh.
wave, and
Uh-huh.
he's having a great ride through the pipe, but you know, all of a sudden he sees the light at the end of the tunnel,
Uh-huh.
literally a
The way,
tunnel,
sure, sure.
and it inspires him. So it's like that. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, whether it's your
Hmm.
surfing tunnel or the change that you're going through, whatever change that is. I know that in my career, change change is a constant.
Constant.
It's why, you know, I always put up the delta on my whiteboard from Heraclitus. All is flux. Um, it's a constant. So you learn to understand that change is going to be there, and
Yes.
you have to learn to look for how will this be good for me?
Hmm.
How can something good come out of this? And
Hmm.
initially, you might think, "Oh, this is just horrible, a disaster," and
Who moved my cheese?
yeah, and I'm not going to be able to work. I'm not going to be able to function. You know,
Yes.
whether
Yes.
it was a change of operating systems or something
Yes.
else. Um, you have to learn what's in there for you. What is it
Yeah.
that's going to help you uh, see something different? And if it's change born of uncertainty, then one thing that's in it for you is that you're going to learn to be more adaptable
Yeah.
because you have to be. You know, being thrown into the deep end of the pool, you have to learn to
Absolutely.
swim. You're thrown into the deep end of uncertainty. You have to learn some skills to navigate that uncertainty. And
Well, some things that I've seen with people is, they'll try to um they'll get really upset about things they have no control over, and you can't influence and you can't change. So one thing that really helps me is I get really busy with the things that I can control and the things
hmm
that I do have influence over. So for example, our nonprofit is organizing a gala. We're doing a fundraiser at Resorts World Las Vegas on the Las Vegas Strip. And that really helps me bring our community together, bring the resources together around mental health. I think everybody's pretty much on board with the fact that we need more mental health support for people, right? More professional resources. And so when I can get busy in my community about something that I do have control over, then I feel better, right? I was just asked to mentor a couple of our graduating students that are coming in for the Asian Pacific Islander community, and that's another thing that I can do that I have influence over, where I can help uh, and shape and encourage them to have more empathy, teach them different methodologies for decision making, for leadership. And then, that's something that I do have influence over. Whereas
hmm
other things, I just don't have influence over those. And it is what it is. So I have to adapt.
Yeah.
And okay, those things, I've got to ride the wave. I've got to see what part of the peak that we're in, and what kind of decision making needs to happen based on that, right? Because when you're here, it's adaptability time, right? You have to accept and adapt. And then you start to find, like you said, bits that you can influence, things that you can change, and ways to adapt within that system. Um, right now, we're seeing a lot of systems that are failing, a lot of systems that are changing, a lot of systems that are shifting. And really, they have been. Many of these systems have been. It's just that right now, it's all up in the light.
Hmm.
Whereas before, a lot of it was hidden and we weren't aware, right? There's been nowhere in the history of humanity in our time where we've had real-time updates. And who are we getting those updates from?
Hmm.
People who are able to influence the media. I'm reading a really great book right now called let's see, my friend Hannes turned me on to it. It's Hopeful History. Let me find the name. It's from oh gosh, it's such a great book. I was just Humankind. That's what it is. It's called Humankind: A Hopeful History, and it
Mm.
shows that people in times of crisis, people in times of war, people in times of great change, and flux will historically come together with
Hmm.
empathy, with care, reaching out to each other. And the people who are driving the war, the people who are driving the change, the people who are driving the misinformation, they're the loudest. And so oftentimes it creates a lot more uncertainty than actually there is, because people usually and historically over and over again, they band together. Inherently we're empathetic toward each other, which
Oh,
is it's a
nice.
great
Yeah.
book. It's a wonderful book. I suggest everybody. I read his other one too about it was something about utopia. Bregman is the author. um, he's so great. And then his utopia book is called, let me find his utopia book, Utopia for Realists. That's it. And he
Mm.
talks about how at no we, in our history right now we have um, so many amazing technologies, um, healthcare opportunities, solutions for energy, and we just don't hear about them, but they're there
Yeah.
and they're happening in the background. It's it's a really great book. But the Humankind: A Hopeful History, I definitely recommend to everybody.
Speaking of books and history, my one of my favorite books is Barbara Tuchman's The March of Folly,
Mm,
which describes how leaders at certain times had a particular aim and they went about it in a particular way.
uh-huh.
And what happened was the exact opposite of what
Yes.
they wanted.
Uh-huh.
So, a simple one is King George III
Hmm.
wanted to maintain control over America,
Okay.
and and he wanted more money, and so he taxed the people in the colonies, and the end result was he lost the taxes and he
That's right.
lost the
The
colonies
colonies.
entirely. So he what he wanted was control over the colonies and wealth derived from the colonies. And what he
Uh-huh.
ended up, because of his approach, because of his march of folly, he
Uh-huh.
ended up losing the whole thing. And I read that and I thought, I read it many years ago,
Mm,
and I thought to myself, wow, this also this her approach is to apply to big situations in social and political history. And
mm.
I read it and thought, man, this is exactly what happens in business.
Yes.
People think they want to dominate some field, and so they go
Uh-huh.
about acquiring all the competitors in that field, and in the end, they lose everything because they couldn't manage what they were doing. At least that was the thing that struck me at that time.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
certainly true that we can have a goal, have an aim,
Mm-hmm.
and think that we are going to succeed in achieving that goal through one method, when in fact that method turns everything over and we lose
Completely
everything.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
uh, it's it's just it's a wonderful book of history that
Mm.
illuminates so many things that people do every day.
And we don't get taught those things in history, right? Because
Mm.
history books are always written by the winners, whoever the winners are,
It's true.
right?
History is written by the winners. Well,
Oh, it's
history
funny.
is, as it's taught in schools, is just not as fascinating as it
Mm-mm.
really is. I love history now. I didn't exactly love it in the seventh grade.
Yeah, I'm surprised. My kids enjoy history. We're watching the World War II. PBS did a series, World War II in color.
Oh,
And
that's a wonderful, wonderful
yeah, my kids
series.
love it. Like when I was their age, I didn't care about history. I didn't, they, well, kids are super smart these days. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I think future generations are going to be all right.
yeah. So as we wrap up, I just want to say that learning from history is a good thing, especially
Mm,
in times of crisis, as we talked about leaders being forged in times of crisis.
yeah.
Times of crisis, we can really learn from history. And I know that when there's a crisis, reading and learning is the last thing you might think you want to do.
Hmm.
Maybe you feel like, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do this other thing, and you're totally freaked.
Yeah.
Um, but there's such a value and peace to be
Mm,
learned from history.
yeah. And to think that, go back to her quote, crisis is a crucible where true leaders are forged because not because they have all the answers, but because they're willing to face the fire and guide others through it, right?
Hmm.
It's the uh, uh, captain. I go back to our cruise when we did the first ever tech conference in Antarctic coastal waters, and we did a conference on a cruise ship. And on the cruise ship, while we were in Antarctic coastal waters, there was a fire, one of the engines.
Yeah.
So, the bottom like 5 decks were full of smoke. They had to blow everything out where, but the captain, he was just so calm, cool, and collected. I mean, here we are, 3,000 people in the middle. It's going to take him 3 days to get to us if any help comes, right? And he was just so cool, calm, and collected the entire time. Hey, folks, this is the captain speaking. Just an update. We are blowing out the smoke. We did get the fire out, and we've got 4 other engines or whatever he said, 5 other engines. We're good. As far as that, just mainly we're concerned about the smoke, and we have cleared out the cabins of the. And he was just like so calm. Hey, everybody! Now I've got another update for you about the fire. Like it was just so calm, and he was willing to face the fire with us and then
Hmm.
guide us through along the process and gave us the information that we need so that we weren't panicking, so that everybody was staying calm, cool, collected. And that's really the type of leadership that we need, somebody
And
who understands where people might panic and how to keep them calm.
and empathetic communication skills,
Right.
understanding that people are freaked, and
Yeah.
uh, and knowing that they need information,
Yes.
uh, that's a great example of leadership in a
Yes,
crisis. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, I'm gonna get back to it. I think we're supposed to have like record-breaking rain and hail today in Seattle. So
Not your usual.
not my usual Las Vegas sunshine for sure. So we'll see how that goes. But
Hail. That's different. That's different for Seattle.
I know. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But it's great to see you as always.
Great to
And
see you.
I guess
And
I'll talk to you next week.
okay,
See
talk
you
soon.
later. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Leslie. Cool.